party started and start the webinar. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first annual Maarifa Network series. Woo! P2P, constantly on the moves, constantly looking for ways to celebrate Black excellence, to bring those individuals with talent and skill and all of the things that our campuses need to the forefront. I am Dr. Helen Young. I am one of the co-founding members of Pipelines to Possibilities. My other day job hat is I serve as the assistant project director for the California Community College to HBCU transfer pathway and have been involved in that project for the past 10 years. Super excited to be here with you today. I'm going to kick it over to my other part, one of two partners in crime, Dr. Sasha Knox.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully we're catching you before the itis, and this is a lunch and learn for you as we have an hour jam-packed scenario for you all. Welcome to the Maarifa Network. And if you are unsure, the word Maarifa is a Swahili word for knowledge, for learning. And so this series is all about reaching back and teaching. And so as practitioners, we have the dutiful job of continuing to learn and grow and enhance our skill sets. And what better ways to do that than with the next generation? And so welcome to the Maarifa Network, where we ask some of our prior or current interns to give us their field of knowledge, their study, their experience to make us all better practitioners. This next hour and a half we're going to be learning from Tex Wambui. Lord, I'm going to mess up all the things today. Tex, I'm sorry. That are going to give us new skills in our practitioner toolkit. And so I welcome you all to kick back, relax, and learn with us the Maarifa way. And now with that, I transition it to...
We're going to finish intros. So we're going to let everybody introduce themselves. So if you want to popcorn it to the next person, Dr. Knox.
And so I am going to introduce Dr. White to the stage.
All right. Well, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for being here with us. The Maarifa Network, our first event for Pipelines to Possibilities. So we are very, very pleased to have you here with us. I am Dr. Khalid White. I'm one of the co-founders of Pipelines to Possibilities. And I also am a faculty in African American Studies, Ethnic Studies at San Jose City College. And so, again, we're just so happy, so pleased that you are with us today on the kickoff of the Maarifa Network. And I will pass it to Jamie Moore.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Jamie Moore. So happy to be here and back with the P2P family. I am a Puente Project Coordinator and English Professor at College of the Sequoias, and I had the honor of serving as Tex's mentor during his time at P2P. I'll pass it to you, Tex.
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tex Wambui. And I was a P2P intern, and I became a P2P fellow. I went to UC Davis, and then I went to Clark Atlanta University. And currently, right now, I am a legislative coordinator and policy analyst at the California Department of Social Services, specifically in the adult programs policy. I'm an author as well. So nice to be here.
Thank you, Tex. Dr. Knox gave us a bit of context of why we started the Maarifa Network and what we're doing and why we're doing that. Dr. Knox, anything else you want to add just so folks can kind of get settled in?
No, my apologies for jumping ahead. I got excited for us. I don't think I did my own introduction. I'm Sasha Knox. My daytime gig is I'm the Dean of Strong Workforce and Career Education here at San Diego City College, and happy to join us all here today.
So if you don't know anything about P2P, we started 6 years ago seeking Black excellence to impact our system as educators. We know that our system struggles with representation in the faculty ranks. We do pretty good in the classified areas. We're probably still struggling in those administrative areas. And so P2P has been very intentional about its recruitment, preparation, all of those things that we can do to have an impact on what that looks like day to day on our college campuses. And so, Tex, I believe you were cohort 3.
I believe so.
I believe you were cohort 3. Jamie's going, yeah, cohort 3.
Yeah.
And so we are super excited to be able to continue this conversation or start this conversation so that hopefully folks in our system will get a chance to see the talent that we have had the opportunity to not just recruit, but also groom in a lot of ways. We've been a part of that grooming process, that preparation process that includes professional development, that has included mentorship that Jamie's going to talk about a little bit, her experience and what that meant to her and to her relationship with Tex. And so we're super excited to begin this conversation. We will have another Maarifa Network presentation on Friday. This Friday, we have another fellow who's going to be presenting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the session. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. White, who will begin this process for us.
All right. Well, have the honor of sharing the stage and introducing to some again, bringing to others' attention, Tex Wambui, our featured presenter for today. Now, Tex, can you please share your higher education and academic journey with us, where you went to undergrad and graduate school, obviously, but also your motivations during those times, and then what has shaped your desire for obtaining not only your undergraduate degree, but also your college graduate level degree? Few questions in there.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. White. I guess I'll just give like a backstory first. So I was born in Kenya and then raised in California. And from early on, education was the thing that gave me kind of the framework for a world that didn't always make sense to me. I saw my grandmother retire from, she was a teacher. I saw her retirement. And to me, it was like something that I was like curious about, what does that actually take? And what are those things? So fast forward, I did my undergraduate at UC Davis, studying economics and history. Then I took a gap 3 years. Then I went on to earn my MPA from Clark Atlanta University. And those two institutions, shaped me in a very different ways that I'll speak to in a moment. And that kind of was the foundation for everything I kind of do today, to the role that I'm doing now and to the things and adventures I participate in. So my higher education journey has two very distinct chapters, and the contrast between them tells everything about what shaped me. The first chapter is UC Davis. It was a PWI, a large research institution, and I'm grateful for what it gave me in terms of analytical tools and a rigorous grounding in economics and history. But I also have to be honest that there were many moments where I was very aware of, being one of the few, I guess, also Kenyan students, and one of the few Black students in certain spaces. And that awareness carries a weight because you stop being just a student and start being kind of a representative. And that role takes something from you even when it's unspoken. So the second chapter of my education changed kind of everything, because when I walked onto Clark Atlanta University for my MPA, I experienced something different. I had never felt in an academic setting before, where the classes were actually smaller. I can actually have a relationship with my professors, with my classmates, it was a room where I didn't have to explain myself before I could get to work, where the intellectual tradition centered communities like mine, and where the question wasn't whether I belonged, but what I was going to build. And that shift from surviving space to being built up by one is what kind of deepened my policy thinking, and sharpened my advocacy, gave me the audacity to think bigger than I ever had, including about my goal of one day, serving as a diplomat and representing something meaningful on a global stage. So those kind of two chapters in my education journey have been monumental to who I am today and what I do right now. As you can see right now in the background, this is something that actually we came up with, me and some of my buddies, while I was in grad school. I didn't really believe in it, but one of my professors, shout out to him, Dr. Oyurende. He was an economics professor and kind of had a similar experience as well in undergrad, but a different professor. And Dr. Oyurende asked me, he said, when you graduate from here, your capstone thesis dissertation has to come from an Afrocentric point of view. And for me, I was like, but we live in the USA. What do you mean? Like, I'm supposed to speak from where I live in. But when my dissertation came in, I did my first draft. He literally just threw it in the trash. From that moment on is when I was like, all right, I got to get focused and actually represent something that's meaningful for myself, who I am, where I come from, for the people who are a part of, to also kind of the global stage that I have to be a part of as well. So that's been my education journey.
Thank you, Tex. If I'm hearing you correctly, too, it's kind of like a duality in your journey, right? From the experience at UC Davis and kind of being on the fringes, if I'm hearing you correctly, to being kind of being able to be fully yourself and be part of the process at Clark Atlanta University.
Yeah.
Safe to say? Okay,
Yep.
good. All
Yep.
right, excellent. The power of our HBCUs was, change your mentality and your trajectory for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. I wish more people were here to hear that. But those who are here will, of course, understand that their job is to go out and share that with someone. But I think it also speaks to your ability of diversity, right? And that you would be able to be in a classroom and see the diversity in a classroom of folks because you've had that experience, right? As a student, and then looking at it as a potential educator. So thank you for sharing that. That was really, really great. I have your next question, Tex.
Okay.
How did you learn about pipelines to possibilities, P2P, and what drew you to this program? So how did you learn about it? And then what drew you to this program?
Okay, so the way I actually learned about P2P, it's kind of a funny story. I was in grad school at Clark Atlanta. I was spending time in the Graduate Resource Center, which, anyone who's been through like graduate programs knows becomes like a second home where you can get the resources to while you're there. And I was in that space just talking openly about the things that I wanted to do with different folks, kind of the aspirations we had. And we were all passionate about it. And then, kind of rubbed shoulders with other people who love to write. And I got a notification literally in the middle of my conversation about this. And I was like, oh, God answered my prayers to just show me something. I literally got a notification. And then I looked into it and I was like, what is this? Okay. So I felt just called to it. And the bigger vision for my life was that, taking shape at that time. And I was saying things out loud to myself that I hadn't always felt safe saying because, the environment encouraged that kind of honesty. It was right in the middle of that conversation when I got that, notification from P2P. And it came to me at exactly the right moment when I was already in the posture of dreaming out loud. So what drew me to P2P actually felt like a formal extension of that conversation, a program that said the things I was talking about, the ambition, the vision, the desire to move across, policy and storytelling and advocacy and education, even supply chain and management and understanding how those things are all tied into education as well. And those things belong together. And I wanted to help myself build that. And I also want to be part of a community that can help me build those intentionally. So for someone carrying a goal as large as, the one I have of becoming a diplomat, which is a completely different route from a lot of people. I've taken the Foreign Service Officer exam, but it's still a progress. And P2P was the first program that made me feel like a pipeline and not a pipe dream, to where I understood that I can live out my dream of being in higher education as being somebody who's an educator, which I eventually transitioned into actually being a research teacher to high school students and now trying to advance myself to being one to college students. And it gave me kind of the green light that I have been moving on ever since. So that was it for me.
Wow. that is like powerful, just really powerful to hear. So we were at the right time, at the right place. Now, was there someone else that you knew that had participated in P2P? Or literally, did you just get an email, a text? How did that kind of come about? Was there somebody that had taken part in this program prior to you participating?
I didn't know them until I was part of the program. That was how I ended up kind of rubbing shoulders with them. And I was sharing
Wow.
with somebody and I told them about the program and they were like, "Oh, you're in P2P. Oh, did you do this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm already in the program right now." They're like, "Oh, perfect." I think they were part of the program before. And that's how I kept myself, kind of going. So
Kind of tied in. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's wonderful. 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 I'm going to pass it over to Jamie.
All right. I just put in the chat, which I think only the panelists can see. I expect nothing less of you, Tex, but you came through with like three new mottos for P2P. So I'm expecting some updated sweatshirts with all of your adages on them. And before I ask the question, I just want to set a little context for our connection. I felt really lucky. I had an easy job as your mentor because you came into my life like already prepared. You were writing, you were self-publishing, you were producing podcasts and film, you were seeking internships to deepen your professional experience. And so I was honored to support you in learning about the California community college system, exploring where your pathway would lead you, whether that was faculty or admin or somewhere in between. But what was always clear to me was that you have a passion for students, for sharing resources, for teaching, for educating, and also just being engaged in continuous learning, which I think is a thing that drives all of us. And something that I love is part of this program that the mentors are always present learning with you. Um, During our time together, I remember connecting you to a few professionals in my network, working on a mock interview. We searched for internships and scholarships, built your CV. I think even started some application processes for summer jobs. But most excitingly, I got to watch you claim your brilliance, as you just talked about, to practice the language of the world you were entering and just prepare the ways that you were going to present yourself in these spaces. So I know that you've always been driven, you've always understood like where you want to go. And it's really cool to hear you talk about how you also understood that a program like P2P was here to like widen your network and to pour into you in those ways that like you already had the seeds, you just needed a little water to help that grow, to help that blossom. Um, and yeah, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited for all your successes to see the way that you've grown. So I'm hoping you could share with us a little bit about your experience in P2P and what were some of the biggest takeaways for you?
thank you for that, Jamie. Well, P2P gave me something I didn't know I was missing, which was a community that could hold like the full size of my ambition without flinching. Before, P2P, I was carrying a lot of, things separately, the policy work, the writing, the advocacy, the dream of diplomacy, the belief that my story as like a Kenyan kid raised in California, moving between worlds was an actual asset and not a liability. And I was carrying all that, quietly because not every room is big enough for all of it. But B2P was big enough. And the experience, taught me that higher education is not the ceiling, but the floor, and that everything I had studied and written and advocated for was preparation for something that I hadn't arrived yet. So the biggest takeaway I carry into every room now is that anything is possible essentially from being part of P2P, as long as you are prepared and you actually put in the time with the community and the network that you have. Because, anything is possible when you stop waiting for somebody to tell you that you are ready and, start moving like you already are. So because that shift from waiting for permission to operating with purpose happened in P2P, and it made me realize, my writing actually became it widened my ability to write in different aspects in different fields, and how to actually articulate in front of an audience and how to write different ways. And also my policy voice became sharper, understanding how the California community colleges work and the transition from California community colleges to UCs, CSUs, or HBCUs, and all those different pipelines. I mean, also understanding the history, which to me is one of my biggest things. I love history. Um, and then that goal of becoming a diplomat as well was something that we always practice as well, Jamie, of, I used to talk about, how do I practice talking like a diplomat? And being part of P2P gave me the opportunity to represent myself something more meaningful on a global stage and to stop feeling like a distant dream and to started feeling like the next chapter for myself. So one of my biggest takeaways from P2P was actually understanding the importance of meeting deadlines because that was something, even though it was probably something that I knew about, but I understood the importance of what is deadlines, what is the importance of actually reaching out, and what is the importance of actually reading and being prepared before you enter into a room. Because, if you enter into a room without being prepared, there's no way you're gonna walk out that room the same. So that's one of my biggest takeaways, and through all the sessions in the community and network I've had, the experiences I've had with P2P, really shaped kind of how I perceive and have the perspective I have now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that reflection. And I do remember those deadlines. I remember those conversations, but you got there. And so love that your reflection of your growth is both those smaller tangible things that were easy to kind of check off as you were working through, and then also those larger kind of personal development pieces that I think again were already a part of who you are as a person, but you were able to expand and grow into them. Great. I'm going to pass it back over to Dr. White for an additional question.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Just want to make sure that everybody understands out there in cyberspace that P2P offers a paid internship for our student interns and also for our mentors. So deadlines are attached to getting paid in our program. Not to say that was Texas' only motivation or Jamie's only motivation. However, there is some necessity around the deadlines for us as a program. So just wanted to make sure that that's clear. But Tex, you have articulated a number of different highlights and attributes about your time in higher education in our program. But I want to talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to me, and I'm sure to Jamie as an English professor as well, and to all of us really, is the opportunity to learn more about your writing career. Now, from my understanding, you have 6 books, correct? You've written 6 books, written and published 6 books.
Yeah.
And the latest being The Comeback. And I want you to speak a little bit more about this latest book, The Comeback, what it's about, where can the audience find it, and what are the motivations behind it, please.
Okay, so the way I started actually my writing journey was I was an undergrad and I had a professor who gave us a project, and it was an econ class where I I cannot pass that class without this project. And the project was you had to create a business. I think it was Econ 135. It was like banking and credits or something. One of the projects was create a business plan that you can actually have your account receivables, all those things, and how you're going to do all those things, for profit, nonprofit, corporations, S corp. So I was like, okay, I could start a food business. I told that to my professor. He's like, nah, something else, something that's natural to you. So I went back and I just told him, okay, I was really at that time I was really agitated by the fact that people used to make fun of my accent. I had like a slight accent. I was still really trying to make sure my American accent is pretty good. And I think right now it's pretty good. Can't even notice it. So I decided to tell my professor. So I have a compilation of writings that I have and I want to sell them. Can I do that? Because you're a professor, we buy your books. Can I sell my own books and my own writings? He was like, well, write it up. Give me the business plan. So I wrote the business plan. I told him I'm just going to publish the book and then sell it to people. And that's it. So he was like, no, you need to think about what is the ultimate goal here. So I realized my motivation for writing is the same as my motivation for everything else I do, which is being able to actually advocate for myself. Because I believe that stories are the most powerful policy documents, ever written. That's the only way we can understand history is through documentation. And before any law gets passed or any system gets changed, someone has to make another person feel something true. So the Chronicles of a Life series started off by I was in a room with some friends, and my friend made fun of me because of the way I said the word behavior. And I was like, "What do you mean I'm saying the word behavior wrong?" But it's not the way I was saying it. They were saying it because of how I spelled it. For some reason, I still, even to this day, I spell behavior with a U. But apparently you don't put a U. So I went back into my writings, and I was like, everywhere I have the word behavior or the word color or anything that is British English, I'm gonna change it to American English so it can appeal to this audience. And I'm gonna tell my professor, this is my business plan. This is my market audience. This is whatever it is. So I did that. Got a A minus though, unfortunately. But the Chronicles of a Life series, so it started off as 5 volumes of poetry and prose. Came out of my own journey of moving between different worlds, and navigating higher education as well, and learning what it means to carry things like grief, ambition, finding your purpose or trying to figure out your own self-discovery, and at the same time, and also to refuse to let, either one win. So I wrote those books because I needed language for my own experiences. I didn't have any. And then I realized that other people needed that language too. So this new book, The Comeback, is probably the most complete expression of that yet, because it's a story about what it actually means to continue and not to arrive or to conquer, but to keep choosing forward in the face of everything that has tried to stop you. That's why it's called A Tale of Love, Resilience, and Redemption. Um, so what I want people to understand is that my writing is not separate from, policy work or my advocacy or my goal from one day standing in a room and representing something on a global stage, because it's all the same work. So for me, my writing motivation is actually being able to represent myself and kind of my journey and document my history, and understanding that, policy is storytelling as well. Education is storytelling. A teacher standing in front of a students, they're pretty much telling a story in a specific subject matter. So every book that I published, it was a kind of a case I'm making for the dignity of ordinary lives through my own lens, and for the power of education, and for the belief that, where you come from does not limit where you're actually going. So that was essentially kind of the motivation that I'm still going on. And I think as soon as I published this last book, I started writing the next one. Don't know when I'm gonna publish that one, but it's gonna be a continuous journey of the Chronicles of a Life series on different, type of things. And that's my motivation as well. It all started because that professor told me, find something that you can do every day. And since it was an econ class, find something you can do every day. You can get paid to do it, but you also enjoy to do it. And I was like, I've heard that before, but never heard it from an actual professor. But when he told me it's for my grade, I was like, yeah, say less. I'm getting an A on this. So that's kind of how the motivation started, and it's still going on to this day.
Excellent. Thank you for that storytelling. So what we're doing right now on this webinar is essentially storytelling. And as you mentioned, it kind of crosses a number of different mediums, um, and has a number of different utilities. So thank you for understanding that, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. And yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Absolutely. And I will pass the mic to yourself, Tex, to give you an opportunity to share more with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I have a short presentation, just to talk about, I guess, my journey as well. And this is actually probably going to be the title of my next book. So if y'all see this book ever one time, it's going to be called Prepared for Prominence, or Prepared to Prom, or something like that, along those lines. Um, and that's really what it is about today. It's not just about like a resume rundown. It's a real conversation about what it means to build something honest out of everything you've lived through. So, prepare for prominence is something that I feel is part of me writing, becoming, and the actual weight of growth. Because everybody, the one thing that we are connected with is we all feel something. So, can we go to the next slide? So, to be honest, before I get into anything else, like I said before, I'm Kenyan born, California raised, travel the world a little bit, and now I work in state government. And I write books. It's a fun thing that I like to do. And I'm still figuring out things, still figuring things out, which is exactly why I write. And I feel like writing is probably one of the best ways to figure out what is it that you actually want to do. Um, and a lot of what you hear from the rest of this presentation come from moments I didn't fully understand while I was living them. So writing was how I processed them. And that's the thread that connects everything I'm going to share for the rest of the presentation. Next slide. So I probably shared this a little bit before, but I just say it again. So I didn't start writing because I had a plan. There was no blueprint um, of who I was supposed to become. I had this desire to become a Wall Street broker because I like numbers. I'm really good with numbers. That was essentially it. I was on a path straight to go from undergrad straight to go to Wall Street. But then I experienced being on Wall Street, and I told myself that is not the lifestyle that I want to live. I can probably do that personally, and then just venture out into different things and maybe become somebody who has a stock maybe at some point. So moving between Kenya and California, between cultures, between versions of myself. I needed somewhere to put all of that, and writing became that place. So the Chronicles of a Life series wasn't born as a publishing project. It started as a private processing. Um, and I was trying to understand what had happened to me, not performing growth for anyone else, just trying to find the languages, for things that I didn't have yet. So that is why I started writing. Next slide. So the latest book, The Comeback, A Tale of Love, Resilience, and Redemption. It's the most complete thing I've written. It's probably the longest thing I've written so far. And it traces a life from, the red earth of Kenya to the streets of America. I don't talk about myself, but I kind of use my perspective to create a fictional characters into it through the kind of, love that asks more of you than, you thought you had. So it's not a redemption arc in the Hollywood sense, I would say, in this book. It doesn't wrap up neatly. That's why it's going to have a follow-up probably to prepare to prominence. It's a recording of becoming, of learning, to carry pain without letting it become, our whole identity, and of, choosing love, yourself, other people, and again, even when it's hard. So the comeback, and one of the I read a small blurb here from the book, from the red earth of Kenya to the concrete streets of America, a record of becoming, of learning to carry pain without letting it define you, of choosing love again and again. So that specific excerpt is from the book. And when I wrote that excerpt, I was watching the movie Avatar. I don't know if y'all know the movie Avatar. The character, he ends up being he's a Marine who's disabled, but then he gets this opportunity to see something different. And he loves that world and he hates going back to the other world, but he still has to deal with both worlds at the same time because he has to be able to communicate with both worlds. So when I wrote that excerpt, I was actually watching Avatar, and it really made me think from my perspective, how can I share my perspective from a fictional way? Next slide. And these are the other books. Before the comeback, there were 5 volumes. This is the Chronicles of a Life series. The first one is Humble Beginnings. Second one is Questions. Third one is Outrageous Cry, Smoky and Spicy, Crazy and Messy and Loving. And all the titles for these books, actually, I never chose them. They were actually given to me after I read the book out loud to multiple people. And I wanted to see kind of what it's like when they do like new movies and they have like Netflix showings, they get ratings to see if this scene should be here or not. So that's kind of what I did to determine the titles of the book. But the Chronicles of a Life series part was what I essentially stuck, and I was like, I'm gonna make it the Chronicles of a Life series. So if I do this for the rest of my life, it's something that I can say I've used my perspective to write these stories and these things. So Humble Beginnings is where it starts, the roots, the early moments that shape, everything. Questions is about, the uncertainty of becoming. Outrageous Cries, the volume where, silence, stopped becoming an option. And then Smoky and Spicy, this came out, I don't know if y'all remember when there was massive fires in California and things were shut down. That's when I actually published that book. And the actual image on top of the book is actually a picture of that's actually in Africa. I think I was in Togo. That's a picture from Togo because at that time it was so much smoke in the air, but I wanted to kind of create something that brought a little bit of refreshment of imagery. So that's why it's green from the forest. And then Crazy and Messy but Loving is kind of about the mirror. I was reading a lot of Rumi at that time, and I wanted to challenge myself if one day I can be considered like somebody like Rumi. It's about learning the value of the person you see when you look in, when you look in the mirror. So that book was heavily influenced by Rumi, the author. Next slide. So I guess across all the 6 books, four things keep coming up. Not because I planned it, but because life keeps returning to them. So resiliency, not the motivational, poster version, the real kind, where you don't bounce back. You just learn to carry the weight without, being crushed. And then identity, what does it mean to be from somewhere, raised somewhere else, and belonging fully to neither? So that's something I've lived that question sometimes. I'm pretty sure people do that when they go to different spaces. And then as well, pressure, the internal kind, the expectations you place on yourself when you're trying, to be everything to everyone else. And then growth, which is slow, kind of non-linear, and never looks the way you imagined, but it's always worth documenting. And the reason that I think growth is probably my most important one that I value the most is because I really like numbers and I really like charts and I really like graphs. So every time I see numbers go up, numbers go down, it shows that something is going on. It's not like a stagnant, there's no stagnation. But when you have constant, like it's like an earthquake happening, you see the seismic graph, it goes up and down. It's telling you something is happening. So for me, growth is the way I define it, growth is not, it's non-linear. It's just like a seismic graph. It goes up and down all the time and it's always shaking. So next slide. So writing changed actually how I move. So it changed how I read people, how I interpret systems, how I make decisions. And in my policy work, it taught me to slow down and ask what a story actually means, not just what it says on paper. That's the same discipline good analysts require. You have to read what's underneath. For example, when a bill is thrown on my desk, I have to be able to provide to the legislature a non-biased approach that is factual, logical, and actually understanding to what it's actually impacting. So that is how I have changed in my writing. I've had to adapt to that writing. And also in settings of teaching, teaching students on how to understand how to write research papers. Some people want to write about Pokemon cards. Some people want to write about cups. I had a student that wanted to write about the strings that are used to make socks and their supply chain. So those are different ways of articulating kind of your perspective and how you see the world. And then in the way I've also approached it is in mentorship. It gave me patience. When you have sat with your own uncertainty long enough to write it down honestly, you can sit with someone else's without, trying to fix it. So it's kind of having, presence over prescription. And then in everything that I build, it gave me a lens. Every project I take on starts, with the same questions. What story does it tell? Because writing doesn't just produce books, it shapes how you think. And they say like writers read, honestly, to be honest, you wouldn't find me reading too much, but I find actually myself reading a lot of like not full books, but I'm reading everything. And that is something that I always remember back to my grandmother being a teacher. She always used to have this thing to tell me, you just want to do math problems, but you have to be able to explain those math problems with your own words. So that is how kind of that journey has, changed and changed how I move and shaped me so far. Next slide. So I want to leave, 3 things you can actually use. First, your story has value even if it's not finished. You don't need, resolution before you start documenting your life. The process of writing itself is part of becoming. You have to start slow. And then second, writing creates clarity, not just content. It doesn't sit down to produce books. I sat down to understand what was happening to me, and the books came after the understanding. So if you're going through something or you want to do something that doesn't make sense yet, just write it down, not for anyone else, but just for you. Then third, you don't need permission from everybody to start. You don't need a publisher, no platform, no perfect moment. Your life is already, the material The only question is whether you'll take it seriously enough to write it down. And once I realized these things, and after publishing books, I've asked myself, who is my publisher? When I started, getting deep into it. And then that's when I was like, maybe I can now venture into having my own publishing platform to where I can now have other writers. So those are just some things to think about. Is it in that aspect, in that journey, it's important to first sit down, write it down clearly, because it's just incremental progress. Scale one, scale two, scale three, until you can scale to infinity. So that's kind of how those are the three things that I carry myself. Next slide. And then lastly, for me, writing was never just about telling a story. It was about understanding who I was becoming in real time. Because when you write something down, you wrote it down in that real time. Unless you erase it, but you still wrote it. Um, and that's what I hope, you can take out of today, not just like a book recommendation or go get my book, but, the hope that you can find yourself, that your story is happening right now, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Writing helped me make sense of things. It's helped me understand how I can maneuver within higher education, within policy, within my ambitions. And I didn't have the language at the time for it. But through mentorship, through P2P, and through different other networks and communities, it did something for me that allowed for me to be in a room in a community to where I knew about controlling my own narrative. And then next slide. And this is the last slide for all the 6 books. They're all available now at textwambui.com, which is something I just recently created. So if you're interested in getting a book and reading the whole series from the first book to the last book, feel free to go get one. My recommendation is probably read it from questions and then go back in the other order. Just because I was the writer of this book, and then when I look back at it, I realized that should have been the right order. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. And if anything I said today, resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. So thank y'all so much.
Well, it is my honor to facilitate questions and answers. But first, I just want to take a moment to collectively, in all the airways, hopefully you feel all of the love and all of the praise text. I just underscore what Jamie said, that it was easy to mentor you, that it was easy to provide leadership to all the brilliance that you brought. And we are so excited to see the collection of books and all of the wisdom and the little mini pearls that you've been dropping on us today. So thank you so much for all that you bring to our community and to our future classrooms, because we really can't wait to see all that will matriculate there. I have one question from the chat. It is from, and I have the historical knowledge of knowing that it is from one of our current interns. Bianca asks, what are some of the ways you felt you maximized the resources given to you by P2P? And then she has a follow-up, but I'll just stop there and ask that first.
I guess the way I maximized P2P was by treating every moment and every resource as an investment rather than a transaction, meaning that I didn't just show up just to collect, information and leave. I showed up to build something with what I was given. Because sometimes, people have selective hearing, you have selective reasoning, or you have selective decision making. So when you select to be part of P2P, you're selecting to maximize yourself. And the community was the biggest resource, and I maximized it by, just being honest about where I was and where I wanted to go. Because, when you're transparent about your vision in a room full of people who are equally invested in building theirs and also building in you, you stop networking and you actually start collaborating. And that distinction usually does really matter enormously. So yeah, that's kind of how I maximize it for myself. And actually, thanks to Jamie as well. She introduced me to a plethora of resources. One of them was like a writing course that I took, and it made me realize how to write I was a non-fictional writer, but then I can turn my non-fictional to becoming fictional. So that was a resource that I maximize.
Thank you for that. And some more pearls of wisdom. The second question that Bianca asked is, in what ways did you stay focused on your priorities and navigate the employment process?
Make sure you meet with your mentor. First thing, make sure you do everything they're pretty much being provided is coming from somebody that has the wisdom and experience from it. Um, and the honest answer is that I had to stop seeing my career and personal projects as, competing priorities and started letting them as like my parallel expressions of the same purpose. Because, once I made that shift, the navigation became a lot more clear. So, in everything that I do now is being able to align everything parallelly to see what is the ultimate goal and what is the resources where I'm at right now and maximizing it to the fullest potential. So I had a mock interview with Jamie once, and I literally had an interview a week later, and I literally took the same energy I had from that mock interview into that interview. And it just went great. So those are just some of the things you want to maximize when you're seeking employment. And then also just reach out, honestly, reach out and say this is what you want. And then once somebody knows this is what you want, if they're invested in you and they are willing to help you, you're more likely going to get something, out of it. So just put in the time and the effort. And the three things that I would say is be consistent, be disciplined, and just have accountability for yourself.
Consistency, discipline. Um, and I love this it be they're not
Sasha, we're losing you probably because you're moving about.
self as a practitioner needed. I don't any. Oh, there are some more questions. Testing.
Okay, you're better, a
Yeah.
little bit more stable. You're more stable.
Back and better. Okay. There are two more questions in the chat. Oh, it's not a question. It's just a shout out. From Bethlehem, who is another prior P2P intern. That shouts out text to say that they've grown so much because of your experience, because of your wisdom. I think we are all on the line getting bigger and better because of everything that you're dropping today, text. So just more kudos, more love, and more shout outs for you. I don't have any more questions in the chat, but I do want to lean in and take over just a little bit to ask Tex, what have you been up to since P2P? Tell us, policy world. And so what's been new on your frame of work? Tell us a little bit about
Um, I've been doing a lot of policy work. I've been doing a lot of diplomacy work as well. Had the chance to go to Singapore, United Arab Emirates to do a lot of AI related things actually, and also a lot of in United Nations Environmental Program things, and then also trying to expand Voices of Change. We started off actually last year in February. We started off as a podcast with my friends, and then we started a flagship project in Kenya with the Mongol um, wetlands restoration, and those are some of the things I've been dabbling, as well as trying to actually really understand the importance of network building because going to Singapore, going to Dubai, going to Abu Dhabi, going to different places in the world, you meet so many people, but keeping that network sometimes you kind of feel like scattered. So that's actually some in like personal practices that I've been trying to do is actually to do that. So after graduating, I went to DC to work in policy, worked in climate and trade policy, specifically critical minerals and the Quad strategy. So, and then the Angola Act. I was part of the team that was able to help in, I guess, providing the research to that. And then after that, we had a new administration, so I had to come back to California. And then from there, I've been doing a lot of policy work related to adult programs in the state of California as well, from the federal, state to the local counties and essentially providing guidance to the legislature um, and how also people who are in HSS can actually have better access to education because most of them are either living at home and their provider cannot be their educator. It's trying to see what policies can be aligned to ensure that they actually get the right education. So that's the things I've been on. And right now, one of the things I'm excited for is Voices of Change. I think we're going up. So that's growing. And then I just started my own independent publishing company to actually have more writers and more youth. So I've been part of the Polygens research mentor team where I have been working with students across the world to help them publish their papers. So that's kind of things I've been doing.
I think Dr. Knox is here, but I think she's. Did you have anything else, Dr. Knox? Yeah, you're back now. We can see you, but it doesn't look stable. Bianca had a request of you, Jamie. She wants to know if you can share the writing workshop you recommended to Tex about transitioning to different genres. Looks like Jamie's going, uh-oh.
I'm not sure I remember. Tex, do you remember?
I remember it's like Association of Writers or something.
Oh, it might have been a workshop through AWP, the Association of Writers and Writing
Yes,
Programs.
yes,
Yes.
that one.
So they have an annual conference geared towards writers and particularly folks who are in Masters of Fine Arts programs, but they also offer different programming throughout the year. I would also recommend checking out Poets and Writers, which at its core is a started as a magazine but has developed into workshops, and they also host like local meetups for folks who are based in
Hmm.
California to talk about what is the literary scene in your area. So they helped me build the Writers Network as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Any more questions from our team to Tex? I just want to say you are absolutely continue to be so impressive. Um, any college, whether it's a community college, a Cal State, a UC, an HBCU, would be just, you are a gem. You absolutely are a gem. But I also get the love of policy and writing. I think what you're also saying to the community is we don't have to be pigeonholed. We can be talented in so many different areas. I think about Dr. White, right? Being an amazing educator. I've seen him go into spaces and places and use his techniques with his colleagues, which I'm assuming is the same techniques he uses with students, but also this gifted writer, this gifted producer of film. And I think that is what I'm hearing from you today. And my takeaway is stop pigeonholing people. People can be gifted and talented and make contributions in so many ways, and more importantly, it can integrate us, right? It really has the ability to overlap and complement and really begin to kind of see us as these more, I don't want to say complex human beings having this experience on this planet or on this space, but we're not a one size fits all tooting one horn. And that I think you're really helping us to see that the platform that we could create that allows people to do that is really what's most healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, psychologically, all of those things, right? Because it allows us to be our true selves. And so I want to applaud you. And we will have you back. This will not be your only Maarifa network presentation, because you are that powerful. Really, you are.
Thank you.
Dr. White, Dr. Knox, Jamie, any final thoughts for our amazing Tex?
Just continuing to be really proud of you and all of your work, and we got to catch up offline.
Will do.
Yeah, I would just echo what Dr. Moore just mentioned. Very proud of you, Tex. Very pleased to see the growth, and the continued growth that you are exhibiting. And we got to also, by the same token, share as a program our appreciations to Dr. Jamie Moore for her support of you as your mentor and giving you some platforms and some opportunities to kind of grow in your writing and just in your personhood. I think that's what the
Vou sair, vai sair quando? Sai
mentor,
agora! Que
that's what the mentor-mentee relationship we aim to build in P2P. So I'm glad to see that it has some fruit. So thank you, Jamie, for all that you're doing and all that you've done. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Dr. Knox, I know you.
Yeah, hopefully you all are able to hear me. Just more love and kudos to you, Tex. I cannot underscore more what anyone else has already said. I'm excited for you to come back because I know by the time you come back, there's going to be more books. And this is all just a powerful testament and statement to Maarifa, which is knowledge gained today, as well as the power of relationship networking. And mentorship, which is everything that P2P stands for. So I thank you both for joining us. You could be a million different places today. Gas is sky high. Competing priorities. It's the end of spring, so everyone's going in a million and one directions. But you all took the time to come and share and drop some beautiful knowledge with us. So I just thank you for that today.
Thank you, Dr. Knox. So as we close out for today, again, we want to thank Tex and thank you, Jamie, and thank of all of you for joining us for our first Maarifa Network series. Our next presentation will be this Friday, May the 1st, and it will feature Michelle Mondry. She's a doctoral candidate in higher ed administration at Morgan State University. Her research interests focus on supporting first-gen college students, examining the intersection of trauma and education, and exploring how online learning can expand equitable access to higher education. So please join us on Friday for our next session. We will definitely be sharing registration information for those of you who are here. Please tell a friend. For those of you who work in the California Community College system, please tell a friend. We definitely want to highlight these amazing individuals and hopefully create opportunities for them to join our ranks as professionals in our system. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and take good care. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tex. We love you.
Thank you all. Y'all have a wonderful and blessed day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was awesome.